Republicans have said is pro-growth, pro-business, pro-individual and middle class, but opponents say it's really heavily weighed on corporate. The corporate tax rate cuts, the alternative minimum tax, different things, the estate tax that help the wealthy and the businesses in our county, in our country, but not so much middle class. So is this a bill that is truly good for the middle class, not only next year, but in the next 20 years? And is this something you're proud to support?
I'm very proud to support it. And first you want to think, what does the bill do first? It takes every American and it doubles your standard deduction. So if you're a single individual, the first $12,000 you earn, tax-free. The first $24,000 as married is tax-free. It simplifies the code. There'll be fewer people that even will have to itemize when they go to file. If you're in a family of 4 earning $55,000, you'll pay nothing. If you're a family of 4 earning roughly about $72,000, you'll save more than $2,000 with this tax code. Now, we are at a disadvantage in America competing around the world, so we have the highest industrial corporate rate, so we lower that to 20. And this is where it wins for all. When we announced the tax bill, Broadcom, which was a company that was created in America, they left America and went to Singapore because of the tax code. They said they're moving back. And when they move back and they'll come to California, they spend $9 billion a year, $6 billion in manufacturing, $3 billion in R&D. They have $20 billion in revenue. That's more jobs, more money for America. We're going to see a lot more of that. And then what's so important is because lowering the rates, especially for small businesses, this will have the lowest rate for small businesses in 40 years. And as you know, I created my first small business when I was 20. This is where most jobs are created, that entrepreneurship of individuals out there. So yeah, this is a big win, especially for middle class, but for America themselves.
So the argument that you know, by bringing back and lowering the corporate tax rate, businesses will come, they'll hire more. Historically, that hasn't always happened, though. I mean, the businesses don't always do the right thing and open up shop and add more jobs. I mean, sometimes CEOs will get more compensation. So is there any fail-safe that puts in step regulations, parameters that says, because we're giving you this break, corporations or to the wealthy, that there's some sort of trickle that could help
Well,
individuals?
I always believe in the principle that you want resources go directly where they're going to create the most return on investment. That's a natural thing where people will find that's the basis. But when you start to double the standard deduction, that's the core of the whole bill. So those in the middle class actually get the biggest savings to start out with of where they are. But the other thing you have to look at, we have trillions of dollars sitting overseas that companies cannot bring back to America because of the current tax code. They're going to bring that money back. I want them to use it as the best place of a return. So what they'll do is invest in their companies, make America more competitive to compete worldwide. Maybe they provide it to the shareholders. That helps all 401k bills. Think of this too. Every time you reported about the tax bill getting closer to fruition, the stock market set a new record. So if people would look at their own 401ks, their retirements, that has grown. I think we've set more than 59 records of the tax of the market going up with a new record since the election. But what's more important, people really want to know what happens on this bill. In February, check your check. Because what will happen with the deductions, you'll get more money in your pocket because of the deductions that will be withheld inside your check.
And some have said, though, that there is an instant benefit to a lot of people, but the prolonged benefits of this are not as good. Some people will actually see their taxes go up in the next 5 to 10 years after this bill is put forward. I want to move on, though, to the things that you've been working on specifically with this tax bill, because when this was first released, this was one that was heavily criticized. It was going to affect states like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, California. Political insiders said this might have something to do with how those states voted in the presidential election, whether there was some, the current administration trying to get back at those states in terms of how they voted. What did you do specifically for our state and county when you're inserting these different provisions into the tax bill? Specifically, we talked about the income and sales tax and all that, but did you essentially stick your neck out for this bill against some of the political waves that have been happening and against
very much so. Look, my responsibility is to fight for our district.
Right.
And there's a reason why people would sit back and make the wrong accusation that this would hurt California, New York, and New Jersey. And what do those states have in common? They have a high state tax. That their government in California has a 13% state tax. Now, you get to write that off on your federal taxes, but if you live in New York City, you have a city tax. You can't write that on your state tax. So the challenge is when we wrote a bill for the federal government, we have to write one bill. We want to make it fair to all Americans. So when you double the standard deduction, you eliminate the alternative minimum tax, it actually equals out in the process, and you lower the rates. What we looked at, we put in the original bill $10,000 deduction that you could have based upon your property tax. Now in California, because of Prop 13, everybody probably might not meet that. I argued inside conference to extend that to income as well, so you can get that full deduction. That helps California. I also, in the original bill, the current mortgage rate that you could have to deduct it is $1 million. And you could have 2 homes up to $1 million.
Right.
Well, in the House version, that went to $500,000 and only 1 home. In our conference report, you'll find that was raised to $750,000 and you could use it for 2 homes. So that reaches really California. And then when you lower the top rate, because you're lowering every rate down to 37, that really helps what is called the SALT states. What really has to happen, why does California have the highest gasoline tax? Because our gasoline costs more than any other state, because they keep increasing the tax. That's what the legislature did this year. And they keep raising the tax in California. What they really need to do is make government more efficient and effective and stop wasting the money. How can other states be so successful? And we're losing too many businesses to other states. Simply, how many people will know a friend that have left California to go to Texas, Florida, and Arizona? And it's mainly because of the tax policy.
Certainly is a lot. Let's talk about the realities of this bill, though. We're talking about a deadline the president has set by Christmas. The vote is going to come Tuesday. Both the House and the Senate can be voting on this. Is this going to happen? Will this get through? And this is a key legislative victory for the president, of course, heading into the midterms next year. The Democrats can run on this if there's some failure on the House or the Senate. Can this bill get passed? Are you confident by Wednesday next week this bill will pass?
I'm very confident this bill will pass, and pass next week. What we'll do is now, how the system works is exactly as the forefathers devised. The House made a bill, the Senate made a bill, they go to conference to find the best in both and come up with whatever differences they have and put into one. They have just had that conference report signed and they're posting it so everybody can read it online. We in the House will vote on Tuesday, just on the conference report, send that to the Senate, and the Senate will vote on it and send it to the President for a signature.
Pretty close margins, though, with these votes. I mean, Rubio just jumped on board today. Senator
Corker, who didn't vote for the original Senate version, has announced he's voting for the conference report. That is a very good sign, because it's not the president winning, it's America winning. That the stronger we are economically, our problems become smaller. The stronger we are around the world. And when we're able to compete, that means more jobs. So this bill was give Americans a tax cut and create more jobs, and that's what this bill does.
Let's talk about another thing that's been talked about this week, net neutrality, a big topic. A lot of people hear that phrase, they don't quite understand what it is, but essentially net neutrality, the FCC rolling back the regulations, allowing internet providers to essentially set speeds on different websites they want to regulate, cost, they can charge different amounts to different companies. A lot of people have said this is bad for the consumer, this is good for big business and telecom. Is this a good thing for the individuals? Is this a good thing for our country and business going forward?
Well, I think at first you look back to 2015. Did you like your internet in 2015 was being controlled? Most people say no. What I think is wrong in this process is the FCC shouldn't be making this law. This is really where the federal government should engage and make policy and law, because what happens with the FCC, are they going to flip back and forth with each different political whim and change the process? I think an internet needs to be free and needs to be open. I think there needs to be innovation inside the internet.
So it sounds like you don't support what happened
No,
this week.
I support what went forward, but what I want to see is, I want to see the House make legislation.
You'd like to see a legislative bill that
I think there's a way that we can write a bill, because you want people to invest to keep upgrading the internet. And if they're going to invest, they got to have a return on their investment. Everybody should believe that. But you can't have people dialing it back and controlling to give advantage to one person or the other. I think that's where legislation can come in. And I think there is common ground between both ideas that we can all get to.
What would it take to make that happen?
Well, I'm working with the different committees. I think we can find it on both sides of the aisle to write legislation that becomes law, so the FCC doesn't have to go back and forth with this, that actually people invest in the internet so we keep it moving forward with all the new innovations, and at the same time that people get a return on that investment, but also people don't have control to be dialing back and forth, that people have an internet system that works and open.
I want to talk politics with you while we got you. There's been a lot that's happened on the national scene. Rumors yesterday that Speaker Paul Ryan may be stepping down next year, which of course would bring back up the topics we talked about in 2015 when you ran for Speaker and pulled out. Are you considering, if that scenario happens and these reports are in fact true that Speaker Ryan is stepping down next year, are you prepared to run for the speakership again, or perhaps nominate Scalise in that position?
Look, I don't think those reports are true by any shape or form. I work with Paul every single day.
He hasn't talked to you about this?
The rumors, we talked about how the rumors not being true. We've got so much work to be done. I think you've got to do the job. Paul is doing a great job at it, and I support Paul Ryan exactly where we are. We've got so much more to do. This is always what happens. Somebody wants to put up a report, especially in today's society, a little palace intrigue. I don't believe it to be true. My job as a majority leader, we're working hard at it. We have a good team and a complete leadership team together, and that's what we're going to continue to achieve.
It seems politically, Paul Ryan, in 2016 was pretty outspoken about the president when he was the nominee. You've been in lockstep with the president, both during the election and now in the administration. Is there anything to look into that? I mean, are you aligned with the administration in a way that positions you better for leadership down the line?
I work very close with the administration. I want our country to be successful. I've watched Paul Ryan work very closely with the administration. He talks to the president every day. And if you watch what the president said yesterday, he does not want Paul Ryan to leave. So look, that's more palace intrigue, and in today's world, people want to look at more rumors and look at the success. We're more focused on making sure we get tax reform done.
Yeah, that will certainly be a good thing for 2018, but let's speak about the politics in 2018 and the House. There's a lot of speculation that a lot of seats could be lost. The Alabama Senate race is used as an example right now. You had sort of a Bannon/President Trump revolt with Judge Roy Moore. Are you concerned, as the House Majority Leader, that the majority is eroding or could erode in 2018, and what can be done to bolster that and to protect some of these seats that are in key positions that could be lost?
The best thing to do if you're worried about anything future, do the job you currently have very well. Get more people working in America. Let people keep more of what they earn. Solve the problems that are what are in front of you for this country and also in the future generations. Look, every new election after a presidential vote has usually been a challenge to the party in power, meaning which wins the presidency. We know that, but there's been 4 special elections for Congress. Republicans have won all 4 of those. I think Alabama is a little different based upon the candidate who won the primary.
Did you support Roy Moore through that?
No, I did not.
If you have been asked, would you have supported him?
I got asked during the process. I thought it would have been best had Roy Moore stepped aside. I think for the country, I think for the party, I think for those in Alabama.
Do you think it's done damage to the party?
As a process, I think he did do damage to the party. But you know what? The party is not made up of one individual. And this is where the party can stand up, show they can govern, show they can do it very well. I mean, think about more than 1 million new jobs. Look at the stock market going to a new level. But for some reason, we've got a country so divided. We need to unite this country because, yeah, people are of different parties, but everybody's an American first. And you shouldn't be so angry because somebody has a different philosophical opinion. Our government is devised to solve problems in a compromise. And I mean, every week I have a colloquy with Steny Hoyer, the minority whip on the other side. And we debate a lot of issues. But you know, the majority of bills that we pass the floor have Republicans and Democrats voting for them. And if you look at what the House has been able to do this year, if you take it in the first year of a presidency all the way back to H.W. Bush, we have produced more bills than any other Congress in modern history since H.W. Bush in the first year of her presidency. But we've got to solve the problems to be able to make sure at the end of the day if the election turns out well. But I'm not worried about the election. I'm worried about getting the country on the right track.
But that divisive tones, I mean, those are long-lasting. I mean, we talk about the Bannon candidates that have been put forward. 2 of them have now failed. The Trump backing, the latest one with Judge Moore. You're part of the establishment. The Bannon wing of this party, does this need to go away? Is this a stain? Could this become a permanent stain on the party in the future? I mean,
look, I think everybody has the ability to have a voice. What's interesting, you call me establishment. You know what's interesting is I'm the first Republican ever in my family. My parents were Democrats. I chose to be a part of this party. Why? The first Republican president we ever had in this country was Abraham Lincoln. If you simply read the Gettysburg Address 77 years ago, our forefathers brought forth a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated the proposition that all men are created equal. Those are the things that drive me. And I think you're going to have good and bad in everywhere that you go. It's a microcosm of society, of individuals. But what I think is the core foundation, the principles of the Republican Party, of why we were created and what we stood for, I'm proud of. And I will proudly stand with those every time we go.
You don't like that term, establishment?
Well, look, there's so many different phrases that people bring with establishment. But if I was establishment, it would have been fundamentally different. I never dreamt about running for office, but I registered Republican when nobody in my family. I chose to be in this party. I engaged in the political process because I believed in giving something back. I volunteered. My first job that I applied for was a summer internship in Washington, D.C. that I got turned down for. But only in this country can I sit in the seat for an office that I couldn't get an internship for. That's the greatness of America. But it comes up through the grassroots. I came up through volunteering, being a part of a system, and I think that's probably the best. And I don't think that ever leaves you.
Well, in that spirit, I want to hit on a couple more topics before we let you go. Daca, we talked earlier this year. You supported the idea of Daca now in March of next year that it's going to come to a vote in the House. On that spirit of what you're talking about, this country, about people rising up, about having a place, will Daca participants, recipients have a place in this country going forward next year?
Yes, we have till March to solve this problem. I believe this problem gets solved, but you also have to look at this. Look at the latest numbers. Because people are addressing the Daca issue, we have a large number of individuals who are illegal trying to cross over the border. We've watched recently in New York, the current terrorist suspect that tried to blow themselves up in the process came through in the chain migration of an aunt and an uncle going through. I think we've got to look at, as we solve this Daca problem, we've got to look at border security and we've got to look at the chain migration. I think doing all three of those, we can find, just as I said before, the compromise that brings it together.
But the latter two have to happen.
Yeah, but I think that's the right way to do it as well. That you secure the border, that you don't have to deal with this problem again in the future with Daca. You make sure the chain migration, you break that process of where it's going, and you secure the freedoms for the individuals, that they become a process that they're not afraid.
Right. And could we expect this before March?
I think we can get it. The president is on us to make sure we get it done before March.
I want to ask you about another issue here at home. You probably, you do obviously pay attention to the headlines. Gang violence in our community has been rampant. Just this week, a federal indictment leading to the arrest and different sweeps of 40 suspected gang members. I'm curious, when you watch what's happening here at home, when you see now the federal government being involved on Kern County issues in terms of gang violence, we had, of course, 2 young children under the age of 5 killed in our community. What goes through your head in Washington, D.C.? Can more be done? I know this is a state and local issue, but is it time to sound an alarm in terms of what's happening in Kern County, specifically when it comes to gang violence?
Well, just think what happened this morning at the juvenile facility. I don't know what caused that, what that bombing was of somebody throwing something, creating that fire. Does that have anything to do with who they recently rounded up? But this also goes into immigration as well, because gangs have been coming across illegally. We have been able to pass a number of bills dealing with some of the most dangerous gangs coming from other countries, and they set up selling drugs and others. It's not the one that we grew up in. And you know, we look at society where I used to be outside until my mother yelled it was dinner time, right? And you weren't afraid. But there's so much has changed in society today. I know the special things about Bakersfield. I mean, this city is unique, that you can still walk around. It's big enough, but you can still know the different family members and where you went to school and others and be safe. I think our first responders and our law enforcement do a tremendous job, but when you get lack of communication, when you get an outside force coming in as a gang and others, they can change the dynamics of a city. And if you don't get in front of it, the problem will become too big before you realize, and it'll be harder to solve.
Is this, speaking on that terms of you growing up here, recognizing this community as for what it was, is it different now in terms of how, I mean, we hear from the police chief that says, you know, he's doing this so he wants families to not be scared to walk down the street in certain communities of Bakersfield and Kern County. I mean, is it different now than you recognize?
Well, it's different from when I grew up, the size, the
right.
scope of where we are. We've improved in so many. But as you improve and expand in a size, changes can happen. You get different influences coming in. But the core, the center of this country, I mean, from where you go to school, where you worship and others, there is a unique community that we can be involved. You can have different faith and you'd all get together to solve a problem. The principle of Kern County is always we can solve our own problems, right? We find a problem, we'll attack it, but we'll unite with everybody in the community to rise up to be able to do it. I still believe that's true today. But you're going to have to identify them. And I think from a gang point of view, I've watched what's happened in other cities. You don't ever want that to get a stronghold here.
Asking you our final question here, final topic really, going forward to the next year, what's going to keep you up at night? What's going to keep you concerned through this new year after, if you can clear this major legislative hurdle with the tax bill? What next year will be your biggest concern for not only the party, but only for your district too?
You know, in the district itself, I worry about the next generation. Will they have the same opportunity that all of us had? Every generation has proved on the generation before it in this country. The education system, that I'm not worried about our kids competing with the kids in New York, but what about us competing with the kids in India and China? What does it look like for the next 100 years? Are we going to have an ability here when kids graduate that they'll want to come back to Kern County to raise their families? You know, those are the things I look at, but then when I look at an international place, is the world going to be safe? Is North Korea or Putin going to expand their influence, or Iran, from that point of view? That's why when America is strong, we lead on values that are different than others. There is no other country in this world that has ever been conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all people are equal. That's a different approach. And when we're strong, others want to emulate us. And that's important as we go forward.
Congressman McCarthy and House Majority Leader, thank you so much for your time. And as we always say, we wish you luck in Washington.
Well, thank you. And if I don't see you beforehand, Merry Christmas.
All right. We'll take that. Thanks.